Nicolas Jackson will score 20 plus goals this season. Don't believe me? Well, I'm going to prove it to you. In today's video, I'm going to take a look at the system, the data, and a few small technique changes that prove Nicolas Jackson is on his way to being an absolute goal machine for Chelsea. That's right, you heard it here first. Regardless of whether Osimhen signs and the fact that Chelsea have just signed Felix, I think Nicolas Jackson will be an absolutely incredible striker this year. I'm putting it here first. I'm putting it out there. But before we get into this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. We are on the road to 1k by the end of the year. It'll be great if we can get that, and hit that like button as well. Anyway, let's get into today's video. So for those of you that don't know, Nicolas Jackson, the Senegalese striker, signed for Chelsea for about 35 million euros at the start of last season's summer transfer window, and he looked to be insane. In his pre-season out in America, he linked up with Nkunku perfectly. Mauricio Pochettino seemed to have him playing great football, and he looked a really good player. Despite that though, he went on to become a meme last year with his Darwin Núñez-esque finishes, or misses I should say, and constantly being offside, almost like Timo Werner. Remember him? Yeah. Over the season though, he did manage to score 14 goals, but from an expected 18.6, which was a significant underperformance when you consider at Villarreal the season before he scored 12 goals from an expected 7.8, which isn't exactly ideal when he was predicted to be the next Didier Drogba. He was meant to be Chelsea's new star number 9, but I do genuinely believe that he, while still being a raw product, will be phenomenal. And I'm going to explain to you why, and the first reason is the system. Now last season, Pochettino lined Chelsea up in this 4-2-3-1 that you can see on screen. Nicolas Jackson was often the focal point up top, and it would be like the likes of Nkunku, Mudryk, Sterling, Palmer, all these players that played around him. Brilliant players, but they lined up in this 4-2-3-1 shape. And it looked alright in pre-season. When we got into the actual season though, in the Premier League, things started to look a little bit different, and the way that Jackson was utilised ultimately affected the way that he was able to contribute in this Chelsea team. And whilst he did miss a lot of big chances, I don't think the system served him very well, and I don't think Pochettino necessarily got the best out of him that Maresca might be able to do this year. So let's take a look. So initially at the beginning of the season under Pochettino, Chelsea lined up in, as we said, in this 4-2-3-1, but in attack, the transition varied depending on which fullback attacked, but Mauricio Pochettino liked to put a lot of faith in his fullback going forward. Primarily it was either Chilwell on the left hand side, sometimes it was James on the right hand side, or Gusto. It pretty much alternated. And what I mean by this is that, say the fullbacks are Chilwell and Gusto. For example, the left winger pushes in a little bit and the left back attacks high, almost becoming a winger in the attacking line, and then everything else is pretty normal, creating this attacking 5, if you will. And then you obviously got the 2 midfielders, and then you got the left centre back, central centre back, and then the right back, in this case Gusto, acting as the right centre back. It looks something like this in a 3-2-5. It wasn't exactly perfect like this. Now there were a lot of differences. Sometimes you'd actually see Gusto going forward as well, but then Caicedo would cover the right centre-back and Enzo would drop a bit deeper, or Gallagher would drop a bit deeper to get onto the ball. We saw this a lot. The issue is that Nicolas Jackson, being the focal point, he struggled to really get involved in play. A lot of the attacks came through crosses from the wide areas. So on the left-hand side, you obviously have the likes of Ben Chilwell, who is left-footed, and on the right-hand side, you had the likes of Sterling, or you had Gusto attacking, who's right-footed. So we saw a lot of these in-swinging crosses. Nicolas Jackson's not bad in the air, but he's not the best. And that is where a lot of his attacking threat came from, was him having to get on the end of crosses. And he didn't do an awful job of it. We did see him score a fair few of them, but it wasn't his ideal way of playing. And I don't think it really suited the kind of striker that he is. He's tall enough to win the headers, but I don't think he's necessarily known for his heading ability. So all these in-swinging crosses, he was then the one often getting on the end of it in the box, trying to score the goals, obviously. The issue is in the link-up play, we actually saw him dropping deep quite a lot as well. I think there was a lot of times where he struggled to get on the ball, and he wanted to be involved, so he would drop deeper. And we saw this in the game against Manchester United. If we go to the highlights, we can see here, this is in the game Chelsea versus Manchester United. This is in the 4-3 insane game that we saw. This is Jackson. Oh, I'm going to make it bigger. This is Jackson here. He's in this area next to the referee. Okay? You can't really see it, but here we go. He is here. There he is, next to the referee. And you can see how deep he is. He's inside his own half here, next to Conor Gallagher. You've got over here Cole Palmer, who's providing the width. And you can see Nicolas Jackson has had to come so much deeper to get onto the ball to then carry it forward. If we move on slightly, you can see the ball has been moved out wide. We've obviously seen the transition is coming this way with the likes of Mudryk going to get onto the ball in just a second as they attack down the left-hand side. Here is Jackson still. He's still deep. And ideally in this situation, you'd rather have your striker somewhere here, busting their gut to get into the box. You want to see them trying to attack the box, be involved in the attacking transition. Maybe a ball can come inside so that you could see a 1-2 of, I don't know what colour to make it, will go black. Maybe we could see a ball where the ball comes out to Mudryk, then Mudryk plays it into Jackson, who then plays a ball over the top for Mudryk to get onto. That's the kind of pattern of play that we'd expect to see in this situation, but obviously Jackson's very deep. So that didn't happen. And if we go on again, we can see, granted, to be fair, Cucurella goes and wins a penalty from a foul by Anthony. So we do end up winning a penalty, which kind of counteracts the point I'm trying to make. Here's Jackson in the middle of the penalty spot, but he's arriving late to the scene. But this is a typical thing that we'd see from Jackson from Mauricio Pochettino's system. He would drop much deeper to allow the wide players to provide the width and get ahead, and then he'd attack the box late, and I think that's where a lot of his missed chances come from. Now, going back to the system again, there's another thing I want to talk about, and that's actually the positions that he picks up in a defensive situation. So we'll go back to the 4-2-3-1. Pochettino actually made his team defend more so in a 4-5-1. We'd see the three midfielders and then the two wide players tuck in. Obviously, it was a bit more narrow than what I've got it here, but it defended in this 4-5-1 with Jackson being the player staying up front. When Chelsea won the ball, particularly in these wide areas, say this is Gusto with the ball here, the ball would be played down the channel. Who's the person that's going to run onto that? You can't expect Palmer to run, maybe he does sometimes, but normally in this situation, Jackson's the one that's going to go and get onto the end of that ball. And even if he carries it and keeps carrying it, trying to get towards the goal, he's in a wide position. This isn't a shooting position, and he's waiting for the likes of Gallagher, Palmer to come and support, whoever's playing left wing, Mudryk, Sterling, doesn't really matter. All these players to start getting a forward so that he can then provide for them. This isn't a goal-scoring opportunity. This is, again, where Nicolas Jackson is struggling. And I do think this changed a little bit when Pochettino actually started defending more in a 4-4-2, with Conor Gallagher pushing high alongside Jackson, so that Conor Gallagher could be the player as well that attacks these long balls over the top to then provide for Jackson. I think that was a massive difference, and it did make a change. And we did also see towards the end of the season as well, Pochettino changed his tactics a little bit. And this is important, because this is where the system comes into play. We'll go back to how it is here, 4-2-3-1. Pochettino changed systems. Instead, we started seeing this shape. Again, it's still a 3-2-5, but Cucurella inverts. And the 3-2-5 is a little bit different. Nicolas Jackson was more of a focal point. We ended up having Madueke and Sterling as the wingers. So you've got inverting wingers, with Cole Palmer also picking up the half spaces, who's also left-footed. So you've got left-footed wingers on the right and right-footed wingers on the left, primarily with Enzo or Gallagher also being the player as a number 8. Immediately you get a change of situation. You're not getting these out-swinging crosses constantly. Instead, you're getting either in-swingers that's much easier for Jackson to get onto the end of, or you're seeing these little deft passes into the box that Jackson's also receiving. He's receiving the attacking passes in the opposition's penalty box. And we saw when this started to happen, Nicolas Jackson started to have a much higher output, and he looked much more effective in the system. And why this is so essential is, guess what system Enzo Maresca plays? Whilst he still plays in a 4-3-3, instead of a 4-2-3-1, it's not too dissimilar. One of the midfielders attacks high, the other also attacks high, one sits deeper alongside an inverted fullback. If you want to see my full Maresca tactics, go and check my video out on how Maresca sets this team up. I take a deeper look into the tactics and the team that we see. But In terms of the system, we know Jackson works better when he was the focal point in this 3-2-5 with an inverted fullback and inverted wingers. It's very similar to what Maresca is playing at the moment. We're seeing a lot of Cole Palmer or Madueke providing the width so far this season. We're seeing Mudryk or Sterling playing on the left-hand side, or even Nkunku. Jackson doesn't have to come wide to get onto the ball. He's not going to have to come deep to get onto the ball, because that's what the number 8s are going to be doing. That's what João Felix, Nkunku, Cole Palmer will be doing for him. He can stay up front. And I think that's going to be an essential way of getting him more chances in dangerous areas. Now, when we have a look at the data, I'm not too far wrong either. Nicolas Jackson last season averaged 32.1 touches a game, which isn't too bad, but when you consider the fact that 4.86 touches were in the opposition's penalty box, surely you'd think enough to get more goals than what he actually scored. Surely nearly 5 touches a game in the opposition's penalty box would equate to more than 14 goals over the season. Yes and no. When we look at that number, it sounds like it should be more goals, but it comes into play when you then compare to the other top players that played in the Premier League last year. When you look at the likes of Ollie Watkins, he averaged just over 6 touches in the opposition's penalty box per 90. Alexander Isak averaged 4.99. He's more of an exception, but a different kind of striker. Haaland averaged 6.48. And especially Darwin Núñez averaged 8.87. That is a ridiculous number. And yes, somehow Jackson still looked better than Darwin Núñez did last season, kind of. That's a debate for another day. Jackson was averaging nearly half of what Darwin Núñez is averaging. That's the kind of numbers that you're looking at. Yes, 5 is a lot, but in comparison, it's actually not that much. And when you look at these elite strikers, yes, they score a lot of goals and they take their chances, but you've got to consider the quantity of chances that they have as well. So last season, most of Nicolas Jackson's shots, as you can see from this graphic, most of his shots and all of his goals came from within the penalty box. And that is a kind of concerning when you consider the fact that he's only getting 4 or 5 touches per 90 in them positions. More so, the expected goals per shot. I'm going to kind of fabricate data a little bit here, in the sense that I'm going to try and make this easy to understand. Per shot, there is a 0.24 chance of that shot becoming a goal. That is what the expected goals of 0.24 means. So theoretically, and this is just theoretically, and I'm, as I said, making this up a little bit, you'd expect 1 in 4 shots to be a goal, based on probability. Say you're averaging 2 shots a game, you'd then expect Jackson to be scoring a goal every 2 games or so. Bearing in mind he might not actually play every single game either. On that logic, if he's scoring a goal every other game, that is 19 goals a season. That's why 20 doesn't sound too far-fetched, hence the title of this video. But I think this just goes to show that Nicolas Jackson, again going back to the Enzo Maresca system as well, getting Nicolas Jackson more chances in the box where he is a focal point and not the link-up player is essential. I think it would then generate more shots for him, and say he then starts taking 6 touches in the opposition's penalty box per 90 instead of 4, you're suddenly maybe getting an extra shot a game, and then you're increasing your chances. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but football is to an extent a data game. You look at the data of per shot, now I know it's so much more than that, but when you look at the numbers don't lie. Nicolas Jackson should be scoring more than what he does, and there's no reason why he can't actually eventually meet his expected goals. And I just think that given he's settled into this squad a little bit more, given that this system is going to focus on him being in the box a bit more as well, as we've seen from Mark Guiu as well, and given the pressing system that Maresca uses, Jackson will get more chances in the opposition penalty box, and therefore should be taking more shots, hence should score more goals. See the equation there? I promise it exists. My logic does make sense, I hope. But the final thing that I want to talk about are little techniques that I think Nicolas Jackson could improve upon that will also improve his finishing. I had a look at a lot of Nicolas Jackson's shots, and I've chosen a few that I think show what Nicolas Jackson is good at doing, but then where he needs to improve. And we're going to start off by looking at the goal against Manchester City on the opening day of this season. Now, it was actually ruled off for offside, but I want to point out how Nicolas Jackson's positional instincts are actually very good, but his timing is the problem. So this is where I'm talking about in terms of what a striker should know where he needs to be. And I think Nicolas Jackson does know where he needs to be and is good at being where he needs to be. And I'm going to show you here. So Here is Nicolas Jackson here. He's picked the ball up in this left channel. He's got Nkunku around him. I believe it's Enzo Fernandez as well that's next to him. But he's picked this ball up on the left-hand side. Granted, it's not where you'd want him to be. Again, you'd probably want him to be more in this kind of area. But he's picked it up on the left-hand side where there is space. And obviously attacking space is the most important thing. Because as you can see, Nkunku can make this run instead. And Nkunku's also good enough to be a striker. These two have a pretty decent link up, and when one moves to the striker, the other's pretty good at covering the left winger position. If we move on slightly, we can see here now, here's Nicolas Jackson again. He's dragged out both Manuel Akanji and Rico Lewis. So you can see already all the space that Christopher Nkunku has to attack. It's not going to let me actually draw a proper box like I want, unless I do it like this. You can see here, this is all the space that Christopher Nkunku has to occupy him. He's found himself in a little bit of a pocket, and Nicolas Jackson dragging two players out, he can then play this pass to Nkunku, where he can then attack this space here. Brilliant. That's what we like to see. And he does do that, and this is what happens in this phase of the attack. Eventually the ball comes out to the wide areas. Man City do recover pretty well. We can see here Cole Palmer is taking a shot on the right hand side. I want to highlight to you though here, where's the thing, look here, this is Nicolas Jackson on the left hand side, and he's in a pretty good position. Look at all the space he has. Look at space. I'm talking about space. He knows where space is and he knows how to create space. Anyway, shot comes in like this. Jackson is in a good enough position where he anticipates a goalkeeping error. Every good striker knows when to get into the position in case a goalkeeper makes a mistake. And in this situation, Ederson spills the ball and it comes to Nicolas Jackson, as we can now see here. And he does a lovely little finish. He does a little bloop into the far corner. We love it. We love a little cute finish. That's what this was. He finished it really nicely. The issue is, whilst he was in a brilliant position, he found space, he anticipated the mistake, and he got rewarded for it. The downside is that his timing is slightly off. And I'm going to go back to this photo here. Look at where Nicolas Jackson's looking. I don't actually know if we can see, but he's looking towards the ball. He's looking at Cole Palmer. He needs to be looking across the line here to make sure he's onside compared to Manuel Akanji, this line here. And he turns out to be fractionally, and I am talking about half of his foot is offside, but obviously that was the difference between a goal and not a goal, and I still think he would have scored if he was that half a foot deeper. And that is where I think his instincts need to become a little bit better. But in terms of his positional awareness, there is nothing wrong with his game. He makes a lot of runs into space. Granted, a lot of the time he's offside, but he makes the right runs and he gets into the right positions. It's then the finishing that comes a problem, and we're going to talk about that. So we can see here, this is in the game against Bournemouth, and we can see Nicolas Jackson has been fed a really good ball. It's come from just around here into his path. He's got two Bournemouth defenders next to him. What can he do here? Let's play a game of what do you do if you're Nicolas Jackson. In this position, given that the goal is over here, not that you can see it, but the goal's over here obviously, I think there is every chance for Nicolas Jackson to take a shot on with his left foot towards that far post first time. I think he can take this shot first time instead of setting himself up to take a few more touches. He didn't need to take these touches. You can see there is no way that he can cut this ball onto his right foot. He can't get back around to then take the shot off on his right foot because the defender is right there. How is he going to do that? He can't. He needs to take the shot on his left foot first time, and he'd get a shot at least on target. Maybe he drags it wide, maybe it's straight into the keeper's hands, maybe it's a weak shot that ends up dribbling into the keeper's hands so he can pick it up, but he gets a shot on target. Instead, what Nicolas Jackson does here, I actually don't think I took the screenshots, that's really annoying, but he takes a touch with his left foot, he closes the angle down so much more, takes a touch with his right foot, and then shoots again. And when I talk about it being one of the worst misses ever, he is miles away from the target. That's where I think a little bit of composure is needed and setting himself up. And talking about setting himself up, we're going to go on to this game where we were playing at Manchester United. This chance killed me because there is no reason that this chance shouldn't have been a goal. Let's talk about it. So we can see, what can we see? He's just been fed a ball from Raheem Sterling, and he's got a perfect opportunity. He's pretty much 1 versus 1 against Onana. You can see here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but just here, Onana is slightly off balance. He's put his weight onto his right foot, and he is leaning towards this way. His body weight is shifted to dive to Onana's right hand side. For starters, Nicolas Jackson should be taking this. He should be taking this first time again with his right foot. Again, there was no reason for him to take a touch with his left foot first, but as we can see, he's decided to plant his right foot instead to then take the touch with his left. Instead, he should be taking this with his right foot and trying to find a finish this way, into that bottom corner to Onana's left-hand side. Now, maybe Onana saves it, but based on his body weight and his positioning, I don't think Onana does save it. So that's the first problem that I have with this. But say Nicolas Jackson does want to take it with his left foot, I do think there's every reason he could still take a shot with his left foot and either go for that near post or try and curl it around the keeper. Again, he's 1-on-1. There's no reason he shouldn't be taking a shot off here. But what Nicolas Jackson does is he wants to take a touch. Okay, that's fine. We can understand taking a touch to try and compose yourself. And we saw this in the goal that Haaland scored against Chelsea on the opening day of the season again. He was fed the ball, and the first touch is important for a striker because you want to set the ball up, obviously, on your stronger foot. Now, Haaland being left-footed, he took the first touch with his right foot, then with his left, then with his right to take the shot with his left. He went right, left, right, left. That is such a good combination. It's simple, yet so effective to open up some space and get the shot away on your dominant foot. If Nicolas Jackson wants to take the touch with his left foot, it doesn't need to be a heavy touch. Say the ball ends up here instead. That's fine, because then you've taken the touch with your left foot, you've now taken the shot with your right foot. You've gone left, right. And you can probably dink Onana. You can probably go either side of Onana. Probably you're going to favour this near post. If the ball's here, you're probably going to try and curl it into there. But there is no reason why he needs to do what he does. He takes such a heavy touch that by the time he goes to take the shot with his left, you can see Onana's barely moved off of where he was here. In the time that it's taken Nicolas Jackson to pass the penalty spot, Onana's barely moved, but only now is Nicolas Jackson taking his shot. The issue is that obviously he's now going to narrow his chances of scoring because Onana is massive and right in front of him. Onana does save it, and as we can see, Manchester United have 3 players around the ball ready to clear it, and they do. This chance goes to waste. Chelsea don't score. Nicolas Jackson could have scored in this situation. Again, taking the shot first time, and if you're not going to take the shot first time, it's getting your footwork correct. And that is a massive issue that Nicolas Jackson has, but it's such a simple one to fix. Like, it only requires a bit more composure for him to be confident enough to take shots first time. I'd rather he took them and scuffed them than just wasted perfect opportunities. And if he wants to keep himself in the first 11, he needs to start doing that. But I also have every faith in him that he will. I think he will get better. I think he will start taking these opportunities. And I think what will be massive is, say the likes of Osimhen do come in. Osimhen's expected to be the starting striker. Nicolas Jackson is not a starting striker at that point. Maybe the pressure is off his shoulders a little bit. Maybe he knows that if he misses a chance like this, he won't be on the team sheet next week because Osimhen will be. So he might actually start taking his chances a little bit. That competition might fuel his desire to start scoring goals again. And I don't see a reason why there is any world that he can't become a more complete striker. There's everything there for him to be ready. He just needs to take his chances. The data's there. The system's there. The technique and his positioning isn't miles away from being perfect. It just needs slight fine-tuning. But he will get there. And I think Enzo Maresca, come maybe December, will have a much better striker in Nicolas Jackson. And he will score 20 plus goals this season. You heard it here first. If this goes wrong, just pretend I didn't make this video, okay? We'll pretend that this video never happened. But for now, I'm standing by it, and I'm standing by Nicolas Jackson becoming a great striker for Chelsea. I'm going to back my boys. I'm going to back him. But anyway, if you like what you saw here today, make sure you hit that like button down below. Comment down below as well. How many goals is Nicolas Jackson going to score this season? If any of you say 0, you're getting banned. Probably, because you're probably correct. But you'll be banned. But actually do let me know in the comments how many goals you think Nicolas Jackson will score this season. Make sure to subscribe. We are on the road to 1K. And I'll see you all very soon with a brand new video. where I don't humiliate myself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon.